Hi, Jamie Batts here, your instructor for Bio 221. This is Chapter 26, Part 3. We just finished going through all the different parts of the nephron. And now we're going to take a closer look at what's called glomerular filtration. This is the physiology stuff. So the stuff that we were just talking about in the first two videos is kind of like the nuts and bolts, and this is how those nuts and bolts fit together to actually make your kidneys work. So it's called glomerular filtration. And there's a couple different facets of glomerular filtration. And let's see, we're kind of on page 955. And again, I like to look big picture when I'm explaining things. So that's the basis of this, page 955 and on, so to speak. Let's talk about the different things. I edit my notes just to make sure I don't mess anything up from my memory. I'm a little rusty. So, just a quick kind of cruddy drawing here. If this is our glomerulus and this is, our PCT, we have a couple factors that are going to affect how readily stuff, my technical term, leaves the glomerulus. So first you have something called GHP, or glomerular hydrostatic pressure. Ooh, big word. Glomerular. Glomerular hydrostatic pressure. Glomerular hydrostatic pressure pushes stuff out of the glomerulus. GHP. You then have capsular hydrostatic pressure, CHP, capsular hydrostatic pressure. You can't even see it, it's off the screen. It says capsular hydrostatic pressure, there we go. That's doing the opposite, pushing it back in, CHP. But you also have something that we've talked about before, and that is the blood colloid osmotic pressure, BCOP. That's revisiting us, right? Blood colloid osmotic pressure. That's doing the opposite of glomerular hydrostatic pressure. It's working along with capsular hydrostatic pressure to push everything back in, BCOP. So, in other words, in order to get stuff out of the glomerulus and into this capsular space, right, the GHP has to exceed both BCOP and CHP. It has to be greater than those things to actually push stuff out. And so there are some factors that will affect this GHP, that glomerular hydrostatic pressure. And one of them is the well, we actually have three. Sorry, we have three main ways that GHP is going to be affected. And that we can examine when we look at the glomerular filtration rate, or the GFR. So I'm going to erase this, and we'll do a little graphic organizer for GFR and talk about how that works. Control of GFR. Now when I say control of things, control of GFR, your mind should automatically go to three places. Everything in our body is controlled in three ways. Okay. Autoregulation. Right, what do I mean by autoregulation? This is the local stuff that's just going to happen and influence the kidneys. You also have neural, neural and hormonal. I wrote something different down in my notes, so I had to double check my thinking. I'm right, my notes are wrong. Sometimes happens. So, let's talk about autoregulation first. With autoregulation, I'm just trying to zoom in here so you don't have an awkward view of my nose. With autoregulation, you can have a decrease in blood flow. Decrease in blood flow. And when that happens, when blood flow to the glomerulus is decreased, you're going to get a dilation of the afferent arteriole, afferent arteriole. You're going to get dilation of the glomerular capsule. That's going to decrease the capsular hydrostatic pressure. And you're going to get a constriction of the efferent arteriole. So in other words, as blood flow, I'll maybe make a quick little diagram here. This is our glomerulus. As blood is flowing slowly into the glomerulus, right, your body wants to maximize the amount that's the amount of filtration that's happening. So it pretty much pinches off the efferent arteriole to hold the filtrate in there for longer, to hold the blood in the glomerulus for an extended period of time. So what that's going to do is it's going to increase the glomerular filtration rate. If blood is flowing slowly, it's going to kind of be held here for longer, so more glomerular hydrostatic pressure can build, which brings the glomerular filtration rate back up to where it needs to be. You can also have an increase in renal blood pressure, or an increase in blood flow, right? It's basically the opposite scenario that we're looking at. And what does this do? Well, this is going to cause a constriction of our afferent arteriole. So it's going to be the exact opposite of what we saw with a decreased blood flow. Right? Decreased blood flow or decreased renal pressure. Same thing. I'm just calling it two different words so you can think about it in two different ways. What is this going to do? Ultimately, it's going to slow down your glomerular blood flow, and because if it's coming through here too fast, filtration can't happen. Right? It's going too fast. It doesn't have time to filter. So there's kind of an optimal rate of blood flow through the glomerulus. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to go too slow. So the job of autoregulation is to constrict or dilate the afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole to ensure the optimal filtration. So then we get hormonal. Lots of stuff happening with the hormones. I should have left more room here. That's alright. With hormone, we have the renin-angiotensin system. The renin-angiotensin system. This is going to decrease blood volume, decrease blood pressure, right? Decrease blood volume, decrease blood pressure. It's stimulated. I'm just going to write stim because I'm running out of room. Stimulated by the JG cells, right? It's also going to cause a decrease in osmotic concentration. I don't even know if you can see that because it's so small. Decrease in osmotic concentration of the tubular fluid. Again, so it's kind of hyper absorbing there. You also have the ANP, BNP, or your book calls it ANF and BNF, the atrionatriuretic peptides. These guys work to do the opposite. So these guys are going to increase blood volume, increase blood pressure. And in doing that, they're basically going to dilate the afferent arteriole, constrict the efferent arteriole. Again, the whole purpose is to slow down what's happening in the glomerulus so that more absorption and reabsorption can occur, and ultimately that's going to increase the glomerular filtration rate. GFR, increased glomerular filtration rate. With the neural response, this is all sympathetic. Kidneys are controlled through sympathetic innervation. Ultimately, what the sympathetic nervous system does is it constricts the afferent arteriole, which decreases GFR. Right? If you're nervous and you're, creeping down that dark alley and you feel like, fight or flight, the last thing you're going to be worried about is whether or not you have to pee. You may, if you get too scared, actually pee your pants, and that's because your control mechanisms over what we'll learn about later, your external urethral sphincter can relax, and that will allow for the urination to occur. So, and that's just, again, kind of it's like a cross-wiring thing. Your body is in fight or flight, so it's not really sending blood flow to the kidneys. It's sending blood flow to your skeletal muscles and to your heart and to your lungs to increase respiration, etc. And so during sympathetic input, your kidneys are slowed down, even though a lot of times when you think about being nervous for something, you may think, oh yeah, I have to pee all of a sudden. That's more of a mental thing than an actual physiological response. So we have talked all about GFR. Let's make sure I covered all of my bullet points. We have. So let's make sure I covered everything in the book for this part, because I don't want to skip over anything. GFR, renal blood flow. There's some tables in here, page 956 and 957. 956 is showing you the major numbers. I'm really not a numbers person, I'll be honest with you, but on a case study or on an essay, I would give you the context of the numbers. So I would say, Jimmy has a filtrate concentration, filtrate protein concentration of 15 grams per 100 milliliters or whatever, comma, which is high. And you say, okay, well that's high. Why would the protein be high? Maybe he has high blood pressure. Right? Maybe he has hypertension. So I would put it in context for you like that. The next chart shows actually the amount or the calculator for renal blood flow. You don't have to know those. How to calculate. I'm really not a numbers person. It's interesting. Maybe if you're on Jeopardy one day, they might ask you. I don't know. But you don't have to know how to actually do the math to calculate. So 958 goes through all of the steps. You even have a little flow chart there. Maybe if what I was going through confused the heck out of you, look at that chart on page 958, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, paraphrase them, draw them out, put them on note cards, see if you can shuffle them up and put them in order. That might help you there. So the next little steps in this chapter are talking about some of the reabsorption that occurs. So I'll put that on my next video later.